All right. Shalom, y'all. Shalom. So normally, hold on, wait. I'm trying to see how to use this camera. Let me see real quick. They don't got nowhere on here where you can like edit this. Uh Let me see customization. I'm trying to see how to use this YouTube live, man. I've never been on YouTube live before, so um I guess hey, hey, through the spirit, man, I never been on YouTube. Well, I have been before, but I really do not know how to work this thing. I'm not even gonna cap to y'all, man. I'm trying to sit up here and figure out how to like uh filter my background, but I can't. So man, it is what it is, though. I guess I can share screen and stuff too, but you know, hey, through the spirit and power of the Most High, man. This is brother Isaiah from the Hopeful Elect getting on the YouTube live because the StreamYard live is kind of going janky. So I guess I can't blur my background. It is what it is, though, like the brother Baruch said. But shalom to the brother Baruch, man. Like I said, it's the brother Isaiah. Want to give all praise, glory, and honor to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And today, the title of this lesson is called Acclimated. It'll be quick, but it's just like the word of the day type thing where we just really want to just kind of exhort the people. So with the StreamYard acting kind of janky, I didn't want to stop or allow that to prevent me from getting on the YouTube live. So um yeah, yeah. Salakia real quick. Salakia real quick. I'm getting a text message real quick. So is yep. But yeah, so let me share my screen, man. Let me share my screen, right? I don't know how to share the screen. Oh, right here, right here, right here. There we go. There we go. Share tab audio. So if y'all can see, I don't know what it looks like on the YouTube. Okay. Okay, it'll put me in the corner. Okay. Okay. Hey, this might be better than StreamYard. I ain't gonna count. I ain't gonna count, man. It might be better than StreamYard, but um acclimated, the definition thereof. Like, what does it mean to be acclimated? That's the title of this lesson. We're gonna touch on it real quick. So let's listen to it.
Acclimate. Acclimate. Acclimate.
Acclimate. So the word acclimated comes from to acclimate, right? And what does it mean? It says become accustomed to a new climate or to new conditions, right? To respond physiologically, right? Or behaviorally to a change in an environmental factor under controlled conditions, right? Harden off a plant. So I guess there's more, there's really not more on that, but the one I like, and I'm not gonna say like the most, right? Because it's not me liking the thing, but the definition that really you can sum the word acclimate up in, even with all the extra definitions, is this top one: to become accustomed to a new climate or to new conditions. This kind of goes into the lesson that the brother did. I think it was the brother Azrael talking about where the brother had ordered a fancy steak and he paid $600 for this steak. Well, his friend paid $600 for this steak, right? We were talking about throughout that lesson how sometimes doing new things, right, is better for you because you'll really see the value in being better, right? Or once you taste the other side of something, sometimes it becomes like a new thing that you really want to become accustomed to. You want to acclimate yourself in that environment because you want to continue to feel and experience that same thing that you felt and experienced that first time, right? So the word of the day, man, like I said, is the word acclimate, man. Shalom to the brother Obadiah in the chat, man. You know the Bible Prince, but acclimate is the definition. So let's read it one more time. It says, become accustomed to a new climate or to new conditions. So when we talk about acclimate, we're talking about being accustomed to doing a new thing, right? Well, let's talk about this. We're going to go to the Bible, Romans 12, right? We're going to get a lot of the classics. We're going to get a lot of the classics, right? So this is the book of Romans, chapter 12, and let's start at verse number 1. It says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. It's our reasonable service, to present our body as a living sacrifice. Matter of fact, in so much that when you begin to live a set apart lifestyle for the Most High God, you need to acclimate yourself, right? Acclimate yourself in the environment of sacrifice, right? Acclimate yourself with sacrificing yourself, right? Get acclimated with making a sacrifice. And we're not talking about similar to how you see in the industry and in the world how they may do sacrifices for the left hand side. We're talking about sacrificing for the greater good in the name of the Lord, right? Let's read verse 2. Verse 2, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God, right? So, again, you have to get acclimated with being a new creature. Why? Because, again, let's read it. Romans 12 and 2. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. You have to transform your mind. So you have to get acclimated with even thinking differently. When you come to serve the Lord, you got to get acclimated with moving differently, right? And the thing is that that's easier said than done for a lot of people. I myself can't sit right here in this chair, deliver this lesson, and act like when I first came to serve the Lord, I got everything right. I still made a lot of bad decisions. I still did things wrong. And that's why I'm here to encourage others to maybe have a better start than I did, right? To maybe have, to get out the blocks a little bit better than I did. Because even throughout the duration of the race, I still stumbled. I still fail, right? But again, it's a part of acclimating yourself to be a better person, acclimating yourself to do the things that the Most High God requires you to do, right? Let's go to another one, another classic. You know what I'm saying? Another classic. This is the book of Sirach, or also known as Ecclesiasticus, right? In the Apocrypha, chapter 2. And it reads, starting at verse 1, my son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. Verse number 2, set thy heart aright and constantly endure, and make not haste in the time of trouble, right? So we already see in these first two verses that the Lord is telling you, if you want to come be on the winning team, if you want to roll with the winners, like LeBron James says, if you want to, you know what I'm saying, be legendary, like Shadur Sanders says, then you need to get acclimated with temptation. You need to get acclimated with overcoming temptation, right? You need to be somebody that comes accustomed to being tried, tested, right? Because it's going to happen when you come to serve the Most High God, right? It's never going to be a time where you're walking or trying to walk with the Lord and you just don't face any type of test, temptation, trial, adversity, you know? Now, again, I'm not saying that the Lord can't protect you from certain things, but the way he often protects us is giving us the tools necessary to overcome those things when they're brought up against us, right? Real quick, let's go to Matthew 4. Matthew 4. Let me see. Real quick, Matthew 4. Let's read this, right? This is Matthew chapter 4. I'm saying that all this for a reason, being acclimated, right? We read the definition, get accustomed to doing a new thing, right? Getting accustomed to being different and making a change, right? Let's read this. This is Matthew chapter 4. We're going to start at verse number 1, and we're going to read down through about, we're going to read probably through 8. It says, I'm going to read it as written too. But then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. To be what? To be tempted, right? So even who the world calls Jesus Christ, right? Even the most blameless man in the scriptures, one of them, because there was a few of them. But even the most blameless man in the scriptures, talking about Son of the Most High God, even he was tempted by Satan. which is why when you go back to Sirach 2, prepare thy soul for temptation, it was necessary. You have to get acclimated with being a warrior and overcoming certain temptations because, again, in this walk, you would get tried, you would get tested, but it's all about overcoming the test, right? Again, and this is an exhortation for those who are not me, because I literally cannot sit up here and tell y'all that every time I've been tested in the truth, I've overcame. I faced some adversity. I fell short. But I want to exhort you all to be able to overcome these challenges. I want to exhort other people to be able to be stronger in the spirit than maybe I was, right? Because we're going to read something. But let's read this in Matthew 4, starting at going to verse 2. It says, and when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward in hunger. And when the tempter came to him, right, the devil, he said, if thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread. So right there, he's being challenged. But he answered and said, right, this is Christ finna speak. It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word, that proceeded out of the mouth of God, right? So test number one, he fasted 40 days. And anytime you fast, if you somebody that fasts, whether it be intermittent fasting or whether you do like any type of fasting that you do, and I'm not talking about, oh, I fast from social media, but even with that spiritual fast, in a sense, let's use that too. Let's use all forms of fasting, right? People that say they fast from social media or they fast from playing a video game or fasting from whatever, outside of just food and water. Anytime you take a break from something, there comes that desire, especially as it gets closer to the end of it, to have it, to indulge in it, right? When you first start, you probably start off a little strong. Or maybe some people first start and they're just craving it, like, oh man, I'm just so hungry right now. I know when I fast, on days when we fasting right now. But on days when I fast, I literally get hungrier than I normally would. Like it's literally like a spirit, you know? So um, anytime you fast, sometimes that spirit of temptation comes on you to give in to your flesh, right? That spirit of temptation comes on you to say, go ahead and end this fast. It's not a sin if I don't finish this fast. Well, it's not wise, it's negotiating bad faith, right? Why? I want to pull up that verse real quick. I'm gonna hold this. I'm gonna hold this. I'm gonna hold this. I can't remember the verse. I'm gonna paraphrase the sentence. When thou vow vow. Let me see. When thou vow unto the Lord. Deuteronomy 23. This is what I was looking for. Right here. This is why it's unwise to kind of break those vows that you vow unto the Lord, right? Deuteronomy 23 and 21. When thou shalt vow a vow unto the Lord thy God, thou shalt not slack to pay it. For the Lord thy God will surely require it of thee, and it will be sin in thee. So, yes, if you tell the Lord, Lord, I'm going to fast from sundown to sundown today, if this is my vow and my covenant with you, and you don't do it because you feel like, man, I fasted long enough. The sun almost down. I still got another hour or so, but it's about there. It's a sin, right? So again, when you're tempted and tried and tested in this walk, whether it be fasting, whether it be everyday life, you get life temptations, whatever, you got to be acclimated with being able to overcome that adversity you're facing. The whole reason we're reading Matthew 4 is to show that even Christ dealt with temptation, like we read in Sirach 2. But Christ was already acclimated with knowing how to overcome temptation, right? Let's read verse 4 again. But he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God. Why is that so important, right? Why is that verse so important? Uh, Baruch 4 and 1. Let me pull that up. Baruch 4. Let's read Baruch 4. Let me share this tab. Remember, every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God is what you shall live by, right? This is Baruch 4 and 1. This is the book of the commandments of God and the law that endureth forever. All they that keep it shall come to life, but such as leave it shall die. So if you're somebody that literally understands that the law of God is his word, then you're somebody that understands that You have to follow his word. And if you do, you'll live. Like it mentions in Proverbs 7, keep my commandments and live, right? But if you don't want to keep the commandments of the Lord, you're probably going to have an opportunity to see death a lot quicker than what you desired, or a lot quicker than what the Lord intended for you, because you felt like bread alone was good enough. But it's not just bread, it's every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. So again, this is why we have to get acclimated to thinking and being new creatures, thinking differently, moving differently. This is also a lesson for myself. Like I say, every time we get on live as the brothers, we don't get on live to just make lessons for everybody else to follow. Like, we don't sit up here and act like we the most blameless people on the face of the earth. Sometimes Bible believers, people put that title on them, but you will never hear me ever in my life say that I am the most blameless person ever. You will never hear me say that. Never. Because it's not true. It's far from true. And I don't want to profess to be something that I'm not. You know, at the end of the day, uh, it's about striving to be better. It's about going harder for the Lord. And we're going to read that in this same chapter of Baruch, right? But let's go back to Matthew real quick. Let's go back to Matthew real quick. Getting acclimated with overcoming temptation, getting acclimated with presenting your body as a living sacrifice. There's going to be times where you're teaching the word or you're trying to live a set apart life, and you're going to miss out on a lot of fun that used to be fun, but it can no longer be fun anymore because, again, you have to get acclimated with being a new creature, right? Let's read this, verse number 5, Matthew 4 and 5. It says, then the devil taketh him up into the holy city and setteth him on a pinnacle of the temple and saith unto him, if thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down, for it is written, he shall give his angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. So again, he's being tempted, right? But what does Christ respond with? Jesus said unto him, it is written again, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. We should not tempt the Lord thy God, right? Verse number 8, again. So that's twice that Jesus has been tempted, but both times he's overcame the temptation of the devil, right? Both times. Why? Because he got acclimated with understanding how to beat Satan at his own game, the deceiver, right? Again, the devil take this, verse 8, Matthew 4 and 8. Again, the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain and sheweth him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them, and saith unto him, all these things will I give thee if thou wilt fall down and worship me. And you see that happening a lot in today's time. People are offered the world. Our people in specific are offered the world in exchange for worshiping Baal, worshiping the devil, worshiping Satan, worshiping these other gods, right? Let's go back to the Apocrypha. We're going to leave the book. Matter of fact, I'm going to stay in the book of Baruch right there. Let's go to the book of First Maccabees, right? This tab. So let's go to First Maccabees chapter 1 and let's go down to verse number 11, right? Matter of fact, let's start at verse number 11, right? It says, in those days, right? During the days of, let me read verse 1 for context, right? So First Maccabees, again, this is Apocrypha 1 and 1. It says, and it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chetium and had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece, right? And when he talks about the first over Greece, he's talking about being the first ruler of that Seleucid dynasty, right? And in verse number 2, it says, and made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth. So Alexander the Great, right, when he began to reign, he began to do a new thing, right? What was some of the things that he began to do? Let's read, right? So let's jump down to verse 7, right? It says, so Alexander reigned 12 years and then died, right? So Alexander the Great, who we just read about, began to do a new thing when he became ruler and king, right? He died. And his servants bare rule, everyone in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years. And evils were multiplied in the earth, right? So let's read verse 10. Verse number 10. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been in hostage at Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the of the kingdom of the Greeks, right? So King Antiochus, the son of King Antiochus the captive, right, is now reigning. And it says, in his days, in those days, went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow, right? Why? Why are there wicked men of Israel saying this thing? Because again, when you go back to this, Matthew 4, 8 and 9, you'll see how the heathen had offered us the world. The heathen had offered the children of Israel life everlasting on this side of life. So it causes them to worship their gods. It causes them to worship their beings. It causes them to worship people, worship men, right? Because our people desire to have the money, the status, the cars, the clothes, the fame, everything that come with it. And that's an issue. That's an issue, right? Why is it an issue? Because again, when you go and understand about being acclimated, right? Let's go back to Baruch 4. We're talking about being acclimated to present your body as a living sacrifice for who? The heathen or the Most High God? The Most High God. So when we're reading Baruch 4 and 1, and it talks about in Matthew 4 and 4, where it says, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Then you read this in Baruch 4 and 1, where it says, all they that keep it shall come to life. Keep what? The commandments of God and the law that endureth forever. When you read that in Baruch 4 and 1, you understand it's not good that people want you to go against the grain by doing what? Worshiping wicked men, being partakers of the covenant with the heathen. Because the heathen wanted us to do away with our God, right? Why did we say that? Let's jump down a little bit further in history. Let's start at verse number 41, right? So First Maccabees 1, and starting at verse 41, and it says, moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people. So King Antiochus is trying to make everybody the same. When you go into your history about the children of Israel in the Bible, the children of Israel were supposed to be that nation above every nation. The nations of people were supposed to come to the Israelites, right, to receive the understanding. Instead, the Israelites did not follow the commandments of the Lord. The Lord sent them into captivity for it. And because the Lord sent them into captivity for it, other leaders, such as Antiochus, like we're reading about in First Maccabees, came into rulership. Now that he's in rulership because these Israelites are in captivity, he's saying, hey, man, we're going to do away with what y'all identity is. We finna all be Greeks around this piece. And I don't care who say nothing about it, right? But let me go to the book of Psalms real quick. I want the book of Psalms, Psalms 83. Let me get Psalms 83 real. Goes into goes into what we reading, but this is Psalms 83 verses 2. Let me do 2 through 4. It says, for lo, right, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thine hidden ones. Who was the Lord's people? The children of Israel. So the other nations have conspired. They took crafty counsel against the children of Israel, right? They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance, right? So because of that, this is where you see this happening, right? You see King Antiochus saying, we don't want the name of Israel to be remembered. So I'm going to make y'all one people, right? Now let's read verse 42. First Maccabees 1 and 42. And everyone should leave his laws. See, they're trying to take the name of Israel out of the earth. It's no more Israel. It's King Antiochus. It's my kingdom. Y'all going to submit to me. Y'all going to get acclimated with the laws that I set for, right? Because that's what I want y'all to do. And everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, Many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath, right? Again, what did Christ say? Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God. And when that devil, the deceiver, Antiochus, right, tempted the Israelites with saying, hey, y'all gonna have much success long as y'all come under this one banner, right? This is what Christ did. Verse 10. Then said Jesus unto him, get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Him only shalt thou serve, right? But what did our people do in the time of the Maccabees? Because they weren't acclimated with the laws of God, because they weren't acclimated with being new creatures, presenting their bodies as a living sacrifice for the name of the Lord. What did they do? It says, verse 43, yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath, right? Let's read verse 44 to close it out. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah that they should follow the strange laws of the land and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days and pollute the sanctuary and holy people. And then it goes on the long list about what they should do. But it sums it up when it says, verse 49, to the end that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. So when you're not acclimated with what God says, where it says, for it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve, right? What does it say that at? Deuteronomy 6 and 5, I believe. When you're not acclimated with those words, then you're going to be acclimated with following, like we're looking at in First Maccabees, the custom of the heathen. So the word of the day is acclimated. We got to get acclimated with being new creatures, right? Get acclimated with understanding the words of the Lord, because we don't want to be like the children of Israel during the time of King Antiochus, right? We're trying to get the leader, we're trying to get the righteous to rule. Matter of fact, we're gonna close out on that, right? Proverbs 29. Proverbs 29. Let me share this tab. Proverbs 29 and 2, it says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. So what we're trying to do is get acclimated with the righteous being in rulership, right? And the only way the righteous can come back in rulership is if everybody repents and submit themselves to the will of the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's the only way. There's no other way that we're going to be able to get into the straight gate. Matter of fact, I lied. We said we was going to close out in Proverbs, but I just thought about something. John 10, right? Let's read. Oh, John John chapter 10, right? Let's share this tab. Let's start at verse number 1. This is Christ speaking, because it's red letter. It says, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber, right? There's no other way that we're going to be able to enter into the kingdom, to get the righteous back in rulership, to present our bodies as a living sacrifice, unless we submit ourselves to the laws, statutes, and commandments and ordinances of the Most High God. The festival days, the high holy days, all of that, right? Very demure. There's no other way. Like, we can't sit up here and act like, well, I can, celebrate Christmas and keep the Passover. No, right? Why? Because again, let's read this in Luke chapter 16. Let's go to Luke 16 and let's go down to verse number 13, right? Luke 16 and 13. It says, no servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. Ye cannot serve God and mammon. You have to get acclimated with being on one side, right? You have to get acclimated with being on one side. Why do I say that? Well, let's go to Revelation 3 real quick. The book of Revelation chapter 3. Revelation chapter 3, let's read verse 16. Let me start at 15, right? It says, I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot, right? So what he's saying right here is, I wish you were either cold or hot. Why? So then, because thou art lukewarm, because you're serving two masters, because you're trying to serve God and mammon, because you're lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. Again, we cannot believe lies, man. We cannot be deceived thinking that we can have our cake and eat it too. Unfortunately, life is not like Burger King where you can just have it your way. We got to go by the way, right? The one way that the Most High told us to get into the kingdom, right? Uh let's go back to the book of Revelation. Where we at? Revelation. And then I could have went to John 14:6, the cliche, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me, right? I could have went there, but I figured that some people will watch this and say, oh, he's going there next, but never let them know your next move, right? This is Revelation 14, and let's read verse number 12, right? It says, here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God, right? Because like it reads in Baruch 4, if we keep God's commandments, we'll live. And the faith of Jesus. So we got to have the right faith and works. We got to get acclimated with, yes, having that faith in Christ, but doing the work that backs our faith up, that makes our faith alive, right? We got to keep the commandments of the Lord and live. We got to get acclimated with knowing the law, so that way when we're tempted like Christ was in Matthew 4, when he was fasting, right, we know how to overcome those temptations, right? We're no longer falling to the same sin that we were falling at when we were 2 years old, 1 year old. You see what I'm saying? So with that, I got nothing further to add. This has been a quick exhortation, man. Hey, let's get acclimated with being on the right side of history. Let's get acclimated with doing the right thing, because at the end of the day, it's really about becoming new creatures, presenting our bodies as a living sacrifice, like we read in Romans 12 at the beginning. So let's continue to strive to be better, man, to be acclimated with doing the right things. Most High willing, you all were edified. Hit us up. We don't have our banner going across the bottom of the screen like we normally would if we were on StreamYard, but our contact information is all over our YouTube. So Most High will, any of the videos that the brothers put out, any of the videos myself put out, Most High willing, some of y'all can watch, get acclimated with what's being brought out, and if you got any further questions, comments, or concerns, hit us up, right? 281-330-8004. Hit Mike Jones and Mona Low, right? But with that, I want to say all praise, glory, and honor to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This has been Most High Mondays with Brother Isaiah. Tomorrow we'll be back on live with the Brother Denal. So we say shalom. Until then, shalom.